Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Women's Affairs. What advice, if any, has she received on the possible consequences that labour law changes proposed in the Employment Relations Amendment Bill No. 2 and the Holidays Amendment Bill will have on women?
The Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Oh, no!
Order. I want to hear the Minister's answer. The Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Acting Minister of Women's Affairs, who was only appointed very recently, I understand no advice on these bills has been received.
Carol Beaumont.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Carol Beaumont.
Well, that question was asked on notice, and I would assume that it was possible to find out what advice the previous minister had if the acting minister hasn't been in the role very long. Surely the acting minister is responsible for the work that's going on in that portfolio area.
Well, I think order. In fairness, the minister did answer the question. It may not have been quite the answer the member wanted, but the minister did say that under her watch no advice has been received on that matter. Now the member's got further supplementaries to probe that answer, but I believe it was a fair answer to the question. The Honourable Pete Hodson.
So it seems to me that if a question is addressed to a minister, that the personage of the minister doesn't matter and the office of the minister does. That is to say, it doesn't matter whether a minister changes person every day of the week, that the obligation on the government is to answer the question on behalf of the minister, the office. And in that respect, sir, if indeed the acting, the person answering the question on behalf of the acting minister was referring only to a day or two of activity, then that cannot be seen to be addressing the question.
I think, the member will have heard me just require a minister to answer a question that was, in my view, not answered. And so I'm not averse to requiring ministers to answer questions, but I believe the minister did answer this question. But there are supplementary questions, and the first supplementary question is so patently obvious that the member has available to them, and that's what supplementary questions are all about. That I accept it's marginal, but on this occasion I've ruled that the minister has answered the question, and there are supplementary questions to probe that. Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I think we're going somewhere where we went yesterday, but this question, when it was originally lodged, did say or her predecessor. And so when your office allows, whether on the basis of objection or off its own bat, takes out or her predecessor, what you have done is substantially narrowed this question away from the issues that my colleague was attempting to address. And what I agree with you. As this question has now been read, there is no doubt that the minister has addressed the question. But if it in fact was as it was lodged, then in fact there would have been. I think you would have been requiring the minister to answer in a different way.
I hear the member's point. I was totally unaware of that. Obviously, that exchange that took place in the lodging of the question, and I am somewhat troubled by that. And I think, under the circumstances, given that this is a primary question, I would ask the minister to answer it in a more fulsome manner. The Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. On behalf of the Acting Minister of Women's Affairs, I understand previous advice was provided by the Ministry to the Department of Labour, raising concerns about both bills. The Government considered the advice and on this occasion did not find it persuasive.
Carol Beaumont.
Supplementary. To the Minister, how does she respond to advice from various women's and employment groups that the extension of the 90-day trial period will unfairly disadvantage women because they are more likely to have broken employment patterns and will therefore be exposed more often to the possibility of dismissal without protection from unfair dismissal?
The Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Acting Minister of Women's Affairs, extending the trial periods to all firms will expand job opportunities for all New Zealanders, including women, and those job opportunities will, of course, benefit women. I'm also advised, Mr Speaker, that an evaluation of the trial period by the Department of Labour found that trial periods were taken up in roughly equal measure by men and women.
Carol Beaumont.
Supplementary. Has she or her ministry made any representations on behalf of women who combine employment with child caring responsibilities and are concerned that the proposal to allow employers to request a medical certificate after a day's absence will put additional stress and pressure on them, given that they are more likely to need sick and domestic leave?
The Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Acting Minister of Women's Affairs, as that member will be aware, the requirement for a medical certificate is a small change. It is anticipated that actually not many people will take it up, and therefore women will not be affected by that change.
Supplementary.
Carol Beaumont, supplementary.
As the Minister for Women's Affairs, how is she standing up for women who are paid less than their male counterparts and are therefore more likely to feel pressured to sell off their 4th week of annual leave, meaning reduced rest periods and less time to spend with children during school holidays?
The Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Mr Speaker, there was a concern raised that if more men than women cash up a 4th week, this is likely to increase the gender pay gap. The flip side is that if more men than women choose to cash up, it may increase the gender holiday gap in favour of women. This government trusts New Zealanders, whether they are men or women, to make their own choices.
The order. The dilemma the Speaker faces on that particular question was, I think the question asked how has the Minister stood up for women in something, and the problem with that kind of question is no specific answer to it. But the answer that was given, I've got to say, didn't much address the question. But my dilemma is with the question, asking how does the Minister stand up for women? It's difficult for me to put further pressure on the Minister, and I don't think I should when a question is framed that way. But I would ask ministers to listen to questions and even where there's no specific answer to a question like that, to try to address the question. Question number 9, Paul Quinn.